AB,
Very good. How are you?
how are you?
I'm well, and yourself?
No, I'm good, man. I'm very, very good. Thank you so much for joining us. Um, I was
It's an
asking a
honor
few.
for me.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you.
I saw the
Uh,
session with Happy, and I was like, Happy's like a walking school, so you have to follow everything he says. So
oh my
after that
goodness.
one, I was
Yeah.
like, I'll definitely be on. So I'm honored. Thank you.
Oh man, that was a special moment. I tell people outside the industry how
Yeah.
much of an impact Happy has on our industry, you know. So it was a really special moment having Happy in Jingila. So I was asking a few friends, so yeah, I have AB tonight. What should I ask him? And I guess you probably get asked this all the time wherever you. I'm sure when you say you work for Vodacom, the answer is when is data falling? So I'm going to start with
Yeah.
that.
When is data falling?
So everyone seems to ask that.
Yeah, and I've got a very well researched answer for that.
Okay.
Data fell on the 20. It's been falling for a while, but on the 1st of April, we
Yeah.
dropped our average monthly data prices by about 30%, man. So that's about 2.7
Oh,
billion rand that we
wow.
contributed back into customers' pockets. But of course, data is never going to be cheap enough, right? Because it's such a life
Mm,
source. So
yeah.
we are constantly trying to find ways of packaging it in a way that can give people more value. But believe me, from a brand perspective,
Yeah.
it's our number one challenge, and we are constantly in engagement with the business around how we can bring more value to customers' lives.
Wow, wow. No, that's profound. Now, you've had a very inspirational and interesting journey. And I find this
Thank you.
particularly interesting. And maybe let's start dwelling on those two worlds, you know, because usually agencies complain that clients don't get our world, and clients kind of complain that, you know, agencies don't get the client world. Now, you've operated in both worlds. Just take us through, maybe starting from the agency world, your journey there, and then the client side, and let's start digging deeper on what the difference is, so that we can just learn what these two worlds that people speak about are.
Okay. So look, I mean, I think those worlds are interchangeable, because at the end of the
Yeah,
day, what matters is how you impact the customer and how you drive very strong, differentiated, emotionally charged choice for one brand over another.
yeah,
And it doesn't really matter to me which side of that value chain you sit on, because
yeah.
whenever there's a problem in one side of the value chain, it's clear in how the communication lands, whether it's in the agency side or it's in
Mm,
the client side. It becomes really apparent. I mean, my journey.
yeah,
Look, I went to Wits, and there was a point where I didn't have money. I couldn't buy books. I couldn't travel. My family and I kind of went through a really tough patch at that particular point
yeah.
in time. So for me, the easiest way to make money was to get onto TV, man. I wanted to get into a production, and there was this company called VWV that was
Okay.
doing an audition for what I thought was a BMW commercial. So I was like,
Okay.
commercials are perfect, because you go in, it's a week-long shoot, and you make money for the whole
Yeah,
year. I can go back to
yeah,
school, I can just
yeah,
carry on, uh, get a car, sort all that out.
yeah.
And then it turned out to be it was an event, and actually they were looking for promoters. I mean, at that
Okay.
stage, this whole promoter thing hadn't really caught on.
Ah,
But what I ended up doing was I was a team leader that was helping BMW sell the Z3. And what we had to do is we had to host people to come into a BMW dealership, be nice to them, tell them about the cars, go on a bit of a test drive. And that's how I got into the agency world. I don't
wow.
think if that didn't happen, I would never have got into the
What,
agency world in that way.
what were you studying at Wits before that?
I was
What was
doing a
it in?
BCom marketing. It was marketing.
Oh, so it was in
But
line
the
with
path,
what?
yeah. But the path would have been to work in a corporate like SAB,
Okay.
and then kind of work your way through marketing in that way, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never thought I'd end up in an agency world. And back in those days, I landed up in what was then an events agency, which is an experiential
Yeah.
agency. And I
Yeah.
never knew that that would be such a fundamental part of my learning. So I ended up in an agency that was a non-traditional agency in the sense that it didn't do advertising. So
Yeah.
the early
Yeah.
part of my career, advertising was the antithesis of what I believed good marketing was. I actually thought that advertising was lazy. I was like,
Oh, wow.
you know, it's easy to make an ad. These guys don't really understand experiential marketing. They don't understand how to get into that kind of the emotional space of a customer. And at that stage, VWV was working on online, mobile, what was kind of WASP marketing at that stage.
Yeah.
It was the biggest digital agency in the country. It was doing massive events. So I kind of felt that I was on the B side of the vinyl that everyone plays, and they're used to the A side. And I really got my understanding of branding in there. So that's how I got into agency. And then when I was at VWV, I met a guy called Clive Simpkins, who said, look, you know, I think you're doing fine here, and this is fine. This is great because you're learning all these alternative ways of brand marketing. But I think you should get into corporate. And that's how I got into SAB, by complete chance. I mean, in fact, SAB had just run through a whole lot of retrenchments at that stage. So my appointment took about 6 or 7 months to become formalized. And then I ran a program called Castle Loud, which was... I
remember that.
I mean, you know, Bob rest his soul. Castle Loud took over from Studio Mix. And it was a TV show, kind of SABC1, still the same time slot, 9 to 10. You know, so really kind of, I got into SAB in a corporate. I was, you know, 23 years old, had a massive budget, had a TV show. That's why I got to meet all the DJs, and that's where my love for deep house music started. We had 3 radio shows that we were syndicating on YFM, KFM, and Metro. We were doing massive events. It's like, I couldn't believe that was a job. Like someone was paying me just to live and have the time of my life. So that's SAB. And then, you know, after a while, I decided to go back into entrepreneurship. And my partners and I bought a stake in VWV. So that was, I was kind of 27, 28 years old then. And that's, you know, that's how I got then back into the agency world. And then, you know, went to Ogilvy via Nuno. Nuno was my mentor. She still is, and she invited me to go and join her at Ogilvy as a CEO.
Now Ogilvy is huge. Sorry, AB. You know, I just don't want to miss that transition. So you are heading up VWV, and then you move into Ogilvy. That jump must have been a very big jump, because you're dealing with a totally different beast. And the nature of these types of chats is that when people do move up or move into positions that might challenge them even more, how did you feel about that? And I mean, what did you do to equip you for that transition from VWV to a beast that is Ogilvy?
Look, I mean, I think what really helped me was Nuno's leadership and her stewardship. I had, during my career at VWV, kept my relationship going with her, and she was really instrumental in a lot of the things that we did at VWV and how I learned and grew as a CEO. So when I met with her, Nuno fell ill during the time that, you know, just before I transitioned into Ogilvy. And I think she was just like, look, I've run this business for 7 years. I've done what I can. It's time for me to kind of hand over the baton. And she remained as chairman. So while I was in the CEO role, I really had her leadership and guidance. But also remember, like, I think, you know, there are no really big challenges that come to you that you're ready for. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called a challenge. And what the board was looking for at that stage at Ogilvy was someone who was not from the industry, was someone who would help transform that business into a new version of the gold standard that it already was. You know, Ogilvy was so successful as its own agency back then that I think it was going to be really difficult for it to transition into something else if you kept the same people running the ship. So they were looking for an alternative, and I was, that was my card, and that everything that I did was based on, having a different view, asking the stupid questions, finding the new relationships, and engaging with clients in a really different way, and digitizing the business, transforming the business, and having a, including more Black leadership, more female leadership. So my mandate was very clear, and that gave me a lot of confidence. And of course, it's an amazing business. So the operations it was a really well-run business. I mean, any business that's been run by Nono is going to be, super efficient. So I really, I believe, had a soft landing and a very clear mandate. So to answer your question, how do you prepare for that? I think you prepare for it by making sure that you're aligned in terms of what your mandate is. Because if you know what your mandate is, then you know what you're waking up to do every single day. And it certainly makes it easier to get decisions done and to align. Yeah.
So now you are at Ogilvy. You are running this big company. What were some of the highlights? What were some of the things that when you look back now from where you were, you look back at Ogilvy and you're like, that was a good time. I did this, or we did this as a team, but that was special. Because I think as we progress in life, we look back and we're like, that moment was kind of special.
There were three things in particular for me. I think number one was the amazing leadership, the leadership that I met and engaged with. Mos Mashishi was a member of our board. He still remains someone that I'm very close to today. Nono was on the board. Rob Hill was on the board. Rob is now in Belgium. Dave Livy, who's kind of the original CFO of the industry.
The veteran.
He's the veteran CFO. Was in there. So there was just a really incredible leadership team that was around me that I could learn from every single time. So I think I was humbled by the experience that I constantly had around me and their faith in me to just do it in my way. It was like, listen, if we did it the way that we wanted to do it, you wouldn't be here. So, here's what we can help you with, but the rest you're going to have to do. So it was definitely the leadership and I was humbled by the leadership team that was around me at that time. The second thing that I thought was absolutely amazing is being able to keep Ogilvy's creative credentials going. Obviously it was already a really creative business at that point. For many years, with kind of, leaders like Robin Patta, Borneo Mashiko, having worked through it. So some really amazing creative pedigree in that business. And then, we managed to kind of bag, 4 Cannes Grand Prix. In the time that we were there, it was the #1 kind of creative agency in the time that I was there. So it really kind of showed that even new ways of doing things can still keep the kind of the original pedigree that you find in a place. And that was really special for me because I didn't know enough about the industry to even be able to say, this is what I think a great piece of creative work is going to look like. But with the team that was around me, I got to learn about what that was. And, the business did really well. And I think the last piece that was really special for me was the transformation of the business. In that time, when we joined, Ogilvy was not even kind of a level 4 BE contributor. By the time we left, it was a level 1 BE contributor. There was when I joined, I think Nuno was kind of the only Black executive that sat on the actual Ogilvy Exco. By the time I left, we had Tsidiso, Neo, who was the head of strategy. We had Angela, who was the head of the kind of HR. We had Ellie, who was running Ogilvy Joburg. We had people across the spectrum, but not only in kind of Black leadership transformation on the Exco, but also in the way that we engage with suppliers. So there was a much harder drive to make sure that whatever we're able to do as a business, we actually added value and created Black excellence and stimulated the Black creative and a Black leadership economy in the creative industry. So
that's very interesting.
Those are special things for me.
That's very interesting. And now, AB, there's a lot of talk around transformation, what it is, what it should be. And I find that as we speak about it, you find that people at different levels, whether of the business or whether different companies have got a different view. So when I say the word transformation as it relates to the advertising industry, what pops to mind?
So, I mean, it's obviously a question that I've been engaged in for a very long time, both as CEO of Ogilvy and even now. I think transformation means different things, and it's layered. It's not, I think there's the economic transformation is layered. So there is, do people have equity, and have they got an opportunity for wealth creation? I think that's one. That's about ownership. Okay. Then I think there is transformation in terms of, are you giving people the exposure and the roles in leadership that let them actually run the business? So that is about kind of leadership transformation. And then there's a transformation around supplier transformation. How are you making sure that the value chain that you are influencing is transforming itself as it goes along? So I do not think that conversations around transformation are binary. I think that they are layered. And the approach should be taken like that. What are you doing? I mean, that's why the BU codes are structured the way they are, because they have an understanding that it's not just about ownership. It's also not just about leadership development and training. It's not just about wealth creation. It's about what you do with the supply chain. It's about the new partnerships, about the new industries that you build. So I've always thought about it in a much more holistic way, to answer your question.
Now, do you know, and this is another question that a lot of people kind of don't have the answer to, because at different levels, businesses have transformed differently. Some are closer to reaching their transformation targets, some aren't. But if you look at the industry in general, would you say our industry is transformed or not transformed?
I would say that it's transforming, because I don't think there's an end state. Do you know what I mean? Like and the reason I say that I don't think there's an end state, because as a client, I will see people coming in to present to me all the time. So I'm obviously, I have a constant view on, are they Black people presenting? Are they women of color presenting? Are they women presenting? When I look at the production companies that come through the agency, I'm like, okay, so who are you guys using? And I think that it's better than it was 5 years ago, but we still have a long way to go. So I never see it. I mean, I think, your business as an example of, there are more Black owned, Black run agencies, an amazing contribution to the transformation tale of South Africa. But it's not, it's got to be more than that. It's got to be that plus, in all the agencies that are running right now, are there Black people in leadership positions? Are there women in leadership positions making decisions? And the same thing obviously relates in the client environment too. Yeah.
Now that's very interesting. And now you move to probably one of the hottest brand seats in the continent, if not globally. A very competitive space in telecoms. Now that move from Ogilvy to Vodacom, take us through that.
So my mandate at Ogilvy was, keep the creative pedigree going of this business. So don't crash it, please.
Yeah. No pressure.
No pressure. This is a great business.
I'm interested in this, while we're on the creative pedigree, and it's a thought that I've just had on the work, before we get to Vodacom. Out of all the pieces of work, I know you want Grand Prix, and sometimes you know, sometimes your favorite work is not necessarily the work that won the Grand Prix. Sometimes people have a different. If you look at the work during your tenure at Ogilvy, what would you say? This is the work that I want to. I know you've got a son.
Yeah.
This is the work I want to tell my son. Your dad did that.
Oh, geez. Well, look, I think there's two pieces. There's two pieces of work, and one is more kind of strategic, and the other just kind of creative work. I thought there's a piece of work that Ogilvy Cape Town did for the National Sea Rescue Institute. That it was just such a beautiful tale, and obviously I used to see work all the time in reviews. And that was kind of, it was a piece of work that, and maybe, you know, we'll try and post it later. You know, I can, you know, 9 out of 10 times someone would cry when they see that piece of work.
Wow.
And I just thought it was really well told. The music was like, you know, beautifully set. The delivery of the performance was excellent. And it was a real emotional piece of work that still managed to land the message. That we were trying to do. So that was my kind of favorite piece of work. And then I think the work that we did around Ad Hope out of Joburg was, you know, Ad Hope around the world is obviously KFC's CSI initiative. It's a kind of CSI arm. And it was, South Africa was one of the few countries that made that a food, kind of a food charity type of drive. And we were instrumental in getting the Ad Hope call to action to be a R2 call to action that you can contribute to Ad Hope. And we ran an internal campaign that, you know, helped the cashiers ask for the donation, because a lot of cashiers were just too shy to ask people after you spend money on, you know, on your streetwise for you to Ad Hope.
More.
So I just think the behavioral science work around getting people to, you know, and getting the frontline staff in KFC to be confident enough to go and say, do you want to Add Hope? Now, if you go to KFC, like, you know, 9 out of 10 times it's going to happen. But there was a lot of work done to just get that transition to happen. And that is still special to me, because it's still generating a lot of value today.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you speak about something interesting. It's something that I've heard clients talk about more and more. It's in my head, it's starting to be, you know, when asking if about digital was starting to be very trendy, about behavioral science. You know, a lot of clients now are asking, you know, do you have expertise in behavioral science, and how are we shifting the consumer behavior? And I think I hear that as often as I get asked about digital expertise. Now, when you look at where the industry was when you were heading up Ogilvy to where the industry is now, in terms of the needs, in terms of the what you want from your agency, where are we at in terms of I don't want to say trends, but maybe the reality of the needs or the requirements of the consumer and the client. What should a modern day advertising agency be concentrating on in 2020?
I mean, I think for me, the key thing is purpose. I think all communication partners need to have a capability and a competency around how you help clients identify their purpose and live true to that purpose in everything that organization does, which obviously makes the communication ask much easier. You know, I think for me, that is the, you know, I think that all the other elements like behavioral science, and making sure that you've got the digital capabilities, making sure that you're agile, making sure that you've got, you know, scalable work and teams that can morph. I think all of that is just, that has to happen anyway. I think what's missing is, I think a lot of brands are trying and they're struggling with what is our contribution to the world, and therefore how does that dictate our business and growth strategy? Because I think if agencies were to build that capability, they'll be able to really get a lot of traction in the market right now. Because if you think about it, that's what all clients are actually going through right now. All clients are being held to account on how are you making money, but also making the world better at the same time. And if you, as a head of marketing or as a marketing practitioner with an agency, are able to help a client identify that, you really get that level of influence that the marketing team and the marketing fraternity has been looking for a very long time, which is we want to be in the guts of a business. We want to be at the core of a business. We don't just want to package what the business has done post effect. And purpose gives you that opportunity to kind of go and, you know, backward engineer into the core of a business. And I think it's something that's wide open as an opportunity right now.
Wow. So we're talking about your role at Vodacom, and it can't be an easy job. It's a big role.
Yeah.
What does it take to run the brand of one of the biggest telcos in Africa, if not the world, I'm sure?
What does it take? It takes, you know, more than anything, just knowing that you can't do it all.
Yeah.
And knowing that, you know, your task is to lead and to get people to be the best of themselves. It's such the scale of Vodacom is just, it's unbelievable. You know, I mean, the scale of Ogilvy was mind-boggling for me at a particular point in time. But the scale of this business is on another level completely. You know, we at any one time have got, you know, over, you know, 100,000 pieces of communication out in the market. If it's not on an SMS, it's on a digital post. If it's not on a digital post, it's out in a TV ad. If it's not on a TV ad, it's in the radio. So we're constantly communicating as a brand. And if you think about it, Vodacom is a very detailed business. Our relationship happens at a one-to-one level. It's about what's happening on my phone right now, the service you're giving me for my phone and my network. So the scale is just, it's huge. So you know that you can't touch sides if you try and do everything. So your reliance on the people around you is really amazing and really important. So that's, I think, one is just the humility and leadership. The second thing, I think, is, you know, you've got to have a view around where the business needs to be going, and have an informed view about that, because that's where leadership and the inspiration comes from. Because you've got to be able to look around at the great people around you and say, where's this business going? And how can I interpret that into what we're going to codify as a team on a day-to-day basis, and how we brief the agency? So the biggest task, I think, in many big brands is just making the complex simple and the simple exciting. If you can just say, this is what the brand is about, then you can unleash the power of all the people that are working around you. And I think the third piece is you've got to have an appreciation for change. You know, Vodacom is a business of businesses. It's in everything. So we're a financial services business, we're an entertainment business, we are a network business, we're a platform business. You know, there's so many different dimensions on top of data and voice, that you've got to just be always ready for the next thing that comes your way, because that's what's always happening in that business. And it's in constant flux, more so than I've ever been in any other business. So kind of humility of leadership, making the complex simple and the simple exciting, and, you know, being able to manage change and be agile.
Wow. So we've seen a lot of change, especially in the telco space. I think my little cousins don't even know what a phone call is. You know, the voice side. I mean, I'm the only one that probably still makes calls, and they're like, you know, why don't you just WhatsApp, dude? What are you doing? You're actually making a call. So over the years, what has been the shift in telcos, in your opinion, and where is it going in the future? You know, so from my days of being voice and SMS reliant to where we are presently, to where it's going.
Yeah, I think telcos are going to become platform businesses, and they're going to become aggregators and gatekeepers of different industry. Telcos 20 years ago should have started Twitter and Facebook, and you know, built a business called Uber, because what they had is they had the network, And they were so fixated on just selling data and voice through that network that they forgot and they didn't realize that the real opportunity was the transactions that happened through that particular network. And instead of setting up platforms then, what happened is that the Facebooks and the Googles came around and they just used their network to build businesses that were 20 times their size. And all telco became was a dumb pipe. And I think what is happening now is that telcos are waking up to that reality, and they're beginning to morph into platform businesses that really manage the kind of the transactions that happen across industry. So, you know, financial services is a clear example, right? So now you can get financial services products from telcos. Soon you're going to be able to buy a car insurance. Because telcos are telco, they know where you're moving, they know how fast you're going, they know the areas that you're going in, and they have the data that allows them to price very dynamically those product propositions for motor insurance. They can do that. So that's what telcos are. That's what telcos are doing. That's what they're doing now. They're building their own entertainment platforms. We've got one called Video Play, where you buy, you know, a movie for just like you buy airtime for, you know, for 3 Rand, 5 Rand, 10, or you can get like, you know, a 3 Rand movie ticket that's going to last you a day, or 5 Rand that's going to last you a couple of days, or 30 Rand you can have movies, you know, for the whole week, for the whole month. So that's where telco is going. Telco is becoming a platform business that is integrating all these other services and really making a cut and a contribution in that. So their focus is going to be customer experience. How are we delivering a fantastic customer experience? Because telcos were used to selling data and airtime. Now we have to sell all these other things on top of that. So customer experience is really important. Value is really important. And obviously, you know, the network is always going to be important because that's your license to play. But telcos are becoming platform businesses. And everyone's going to join that thing. I think, look, the most amazing thing that, in my view, transformational thing that telcos have done, if you're looking for a great example, is what Safaricom has done with M-Pesa. M-Pesa, it really solved a problem where, you know, if you worked in the urban area and you wanted to send money to your grandmother, you needed to give the money to your cousin, who would like drink half the money by the time you got to the villages in a taxi.
True.
And they just solved that, because now you can transfer your money via your cell phone network. And now 35% of Kenya's GDP runs through M-Pesa. That's the power of telco. And that's an African case study, you know.
Brilliant. So you'll have to either talk in around it, because there's something that we launched at the same time, which was the marketplace. So we've got Telkom as a client. So we were launching Yep, and we heard through our research that Vodacom is also launching a marketplace. Those types of businesses, especially in Africa, how big are those marketplace-based businesses going to be in terms of the future of not only telcos, but just as a way of doing business in Africa?
They're going to be massive. And, you know, and for me, like, if I see Telkom launching something like that, I celebrate, because what we're doing is we're helping society digitize. And we're democratizing access to a digital economy and a digital future. And the more players that do that, the better it is for society. So, I mean, it's like, you know, I think it's really welcome. Because if people learn how to use Yep and they're on the Telkom network, they're the same people that are going to be using other digital services. So I think any telco platform business is going to start small right now, because we still have to orientate people around, you know, trusting that a telco can be a super app. I mean, Yep is essentially a super app for, you know, for business. Getting people to trust that they can use their mobile to deliver that type of services is a really big job. But eventually, just put yourself, you know, 5 years into the future. That's how business transactions are going to happen. You know, you're not going to walk into a taxi and give someone money. You're going to walk into a taxi and the money is going to be automatically deducted off your phone. And, you know, the taxi driver is not going to have to do maths anymore. It's inevitable. And telcos have a real opportunity to play in that space in a meaningful way. You know, and I think
Yeah.
The Yep type platforms are going to be much more important than just content.
Yeah.
As an example, which I think is an easy space to kind of play in. It's how are you using digital technology to change society? That's really going to bring telcos to life.
Wow. Wow. So, I mean, you talked about the complexity of the amount of communication you have at the same time. Now, that takes a lot of forward planning, right? Now, something like COVID must have just put all of that into disarray, because I'm sure you had all your plans for the rest of the year. Take us through that, take us through, the first time you heard about COVID. I remember it was just this far thing in China, and then it kind of was in Italy, and then it became real. Take us through that COVID journey, from the first time you heard about it to when it started affecting you to how you reacted to it.
Yeah. So, COVID hit all of us hard, but I think as Vodacom, we were very clear from, a while already that our purpose was to connect for a better future. So what we found is that COVID actually accelerated the resonance and the critical nature of the brand that we were looking after, and the responsibility that lay on our brand in that time. Because when we were all isolated, you needed something that could connect people so that you could connect your loved ones, so you could work from home. So we already had baked in products and services that would enable that. But so that's kind of on a base product level. But one of the initiatives that's come out of Vodacom as a purpose-led organization is an initiative to kind of digitize certain services and democratize services through our digital capability. And one of those platforms is called eSchool. And what eSchool does is it essentially puts the entire public syllabus, public school syllabus online for free if you're a Vodacom customer. And we've been kind of pushing this thing for 4 years already. We were getting registrations of about 20,000 a month. When COVID hit, those registrations went up to it peaked at about 120 a month. I think in just March and April alone. That wasn't an initiative that we came up with because we thought COVID might come. That was an initiative that was baked into the design and the fabric of the company. It just became much more relevant when COVID hit, and that happened across the business. So I think we were able to respond very quickly because there was a very clear view around what the strategic and the purpose intent was of the business. And when all of the stuff happened around us, we were able to really quickly, click into gear. Our team, the marketing team, by the way, I mean, that's about 70 people, started working from home around the 10th of March. So this is kind of almost 2 weeks before lockdown. We already made the call to get everyone home and to minimize the risk. The business made the formal call a week later. And ever since then, everything's done. We've launched, 4 campaigns since then. Everything's virtual. Everyone is working from home. And we were able to pick up quite quickly. So I think having a strong, direction and then an operational engine that works really helped us through COVID.
That's brilliant. Now, I've had different guests here, and we've talked about the new normal. We've talked about what COVID has COVID changed the consumer behavior. We had Mzamo Masito from Google, and his view was kind of like people will always be the same. It kind of hasn't changed much. We've had people that have come on and said it's changed the consumer drastically. I'd like your opinion. What has COVID done to the consumer? I mean, we understand it, what it's done for us in the brand and space, but what would you say it's done for the consumer? Has it changed the consumer or hasn't it changed the consumer? And if so, how?
Yeah, I think all it's done is that it's accelerated already existing behavior. And Mzamo was
Yeah.
right in the sense that at our core, we are social beings that need food, that need love, that need connection with other humans,
Yeah.
and that want to progress. So, 100 years ago, people were writing each other letters, and the letter would arrive in a month's time if your family was in another country. Now that is it. It moved to being a telegram, then it was a phone call. Now it's a video call.
Yeah.
That it hasn't changed in terms of what the core need is, the core consumer and human need is. All that technology has done is that it's accelerated it. So I agree in that context, is that all that COVID has done is been able to accelerate our pre-existing behavior.
Yeah.
Where it has changed us, however, is I think that there is a new level of humanity and a connectedness that's dawned across world population, the entire globe. Here's something that, as you said, started in China, and all of a sudden it's impacting all of us today. And I think people just feel that much more connected to each other and a responsibility to each other that I think you could never have been able to create that without this type of disaster. And one of the most amazing things that I've seen and I've heard is people are saying it's not about a new normal, it's about a better normal.
Oh, wow.
And I just think the level of consciousness has been raised in terms of, are you present? Are you loving and being present with your family? Are you building core relationships? What really matters? And I think that's the change. So it's much more of a psychological change and an emotional change in that context. The rest of the stuff is really just digital acceleration.
Yeah. Wow, that's profound. I love that so much. Now, we have a lot of people that are brand custodians. We have a lot of people in the industry. When you look at the performance of brands in reacting to COVID, and you had to put them in two boxes, what do you think brands in general across the landscape have done pretty well during COVID? And what are some of the things that you've looked at and you're like, oof, that's not too good for your future as a brand? Being a brand custodian of such a big brand, when you look at the brand landscape and how they've reacted, what is your opinion of the really good stuff that has happened and the not so good stuff?
We look at that work all the time because we constantly, we want to know how customers view our response in helping them through this crisis. That is it's something that we pay a huge attention to. So I'm constantly looking at work that other people are doing. And I think there's a lot of intellectual debate about it. And I'll get to kind of the work that I really like. But I want to make this point first, is that I think that we over-intellectualize the work that we see. And I think that as communicators, we actually think that customers care more than they do around the stuff that we do. I think that generally, if your ad says we're in this together and it's gonna be okay, and there's 100,000 other ads like that, it's fine. It doesn't matter because that's exactly the sentiment that you want. You may see 100 different executions, but someone is only going to see one, and that's all they need to see to believe that, man, I'm in trouble, but it's going to get better. So I think that the body of work has generally been, we're in this together, we're going to get out of this together, and there is hope, and that's the general message, and I'm completely fine with that. I think that some of the really special work that I really like. I mean, I think the brand essay stuff and kind of essay tourism work has been beautiful. I think that it's resonated and it really gave people confidence and it unified our society. I thought that was really beautiful work. And I mean, I've got other examples. I mean, I think our take on that was there was a lot of work that was quite solemn. So a lot of the work was like quite, thoughtful, emotional.
Yeah.
We wanted to just kind of flip the coin a little bit and just kind of be a little bit more upbeat. And that's a mix. But I really don't think that you need to over critique what's happening right now. I think generally speaking around crises, you know, Black Lives Matter, what's happening with gender-based violence in South Africa. I think that brands need to be very careful how they position themselves in those discussions. Because if you don't have a clear purpose that is able to articulate its response to that particular issue, and you haven't as a business been able to have a track record of dealing with those issues, you're going to get caught out. And I think that's the mistake. Don't say things that you don't do, because people are not that stupid. We've got the internet, we can Google, we can speak to people. So that's what I really think is important, is be authentic in representing the truth about your brand. And if you haven't done anything, it's fine. Then you must go out and you say, actually, we haven't really thought through how to engage, Black Lives Matter in South Africa. We're going to have to think about it and we'll come back to you. That's okay. Brands are personifications of a business. So I think a lot of people got caught out making statements that were relevant and but actually that couldn't be backed up by the stuff that they did. And that's dangerous.
Yeah. So I mean, we saw a lot of brands really struggle to respond to Black Lives Matter, because they some of them didn't have even the moral license to talk about that. Now, it's very difficult to be something happening around you, and you as a brand custodian. I mean, when do you say, should we get involved or shouldn't we? If something is topical and people are asking you, AB, what should we say? What is your answer to that? And I get that sometimes you can say, no, I don't know, but there comes a time where you are pressured to as a brand to say, you need to formulate an opinion about gender-based violence. How is that journey, and how should brand managers react to that? Because as much as some people can say, oh, we're not ready to comment right now, or we don't have an answer, there comes a time where the consumer, especially a big brand like yours, becomes a target. It's Women's Month. What are you doing? What is Vodacom doing? So big brands start getting that pressure. How should the brand custodians of those big brands react to that pressure to comment by their own consumers?
Yeah, and I mean, that pressure is real, as you know, especially in kind of social platforms. I think that brands exist within a context. And that context, if you think about it carefully enough, deals with certain macro issues that haven't changed, right? Black Lives Matter is not new. Black Lives Matter started 350 years ago with the slave trade, right? Discrimination is not new. Gender-based violence and women empowerment is not new. I think you would really struggle to find something that has happened at a macro level that hasn't been in existence for 100 years. So my issue is, as a brand, if you're only trying to formulate what you are thinking around diversity, as an example, today, what have you been doing? In what context have you been existing? Because your customers have existed in a context in which, Black people feel disempowered and they need to be empowered. Women feel disenfranchised. They are under, attack from men in society. It's been the case for a very long time. So if you haven't factored those things in, I think you're going to get caught out. But I would rather you take the fifth than do something that you haven't thought through. So I think really our role as brand custodians is to say, my brand lives in Veli's world. What are the things that matter in Veli's world, and what are the things that are going to matter in his world now and into the future? And that's what you build your narratives around. And if the business hasn't resolved some of those issues, you then work it back into your brief to the business in terms of what they need to be doing. So I don't understand people that were caught unawares when Black Lives Matter hit. It's like, where have you been? No, that's brilliant. And it's sometimes the
the thinking of it's a new thing and not putting it in the context that you're putting it in. What have you been doing? I think that's profound going forward. Now, another issue that you are probably faced with, and I think a lot of brand custodians, some even listening, are in that tension of budgets. You know, so
yes,
everyone is trying to grab money from everywhere. The bean counters are saying, let's cut this, let's cut that. How would you advise brands, one, to deal with the budget issue? And I know naturally we'd say don't cut budget, but I think some brands have got a real reality of balancing marketing budgets and operating. So what is your advice on budgets and what should businesses and brands do with those marketing budgets? And I guess you can comment on it, but I think the option of whether they should be cut or shouldn't be cut, I think we might be on the same opinion there. But how should marketing budgets? So when you plan for 2021, what are you going to do differently with your budgets? You know?
Yeah, I mean it's a big conversation that's happening right now, and I think I'm going to assume that all the kind of marketing custodians out there have already got what they view a fair investment in brand building before COVID, right? So let's assume that that's, you know, that we square in terms of the investment is at X and everyone is aligned that X is the right level of investment to have. Yeah, I think that what COVID did is that it impacted different businesses differently. You've got to have, you know, you are there to make sure that your business is sustainable and that you continue to build the relationships with customers and that they choose you over another brand. So when your revenue is cut by 50% as a business, you've got to understand, as someone that's sitting at the leadership table, that everything's got to be cut in order to keep this business going. But having said that, I think that those cuts, it's been proven that, you know, in all these crises, is the brands are most required in a time of crisis. People are looking, and customers are looking at brands to say, okay, I'm going to be okay. These are the products and services that I can get. This is how I need to be thinking about savings or keeping safe or any of that. That relationship is still key. And you've got to make 100% sure that you do not disappear from the market. And that's, I think, you know, a mistake that many brands have made in history of just pulling out. Marketing investment is something that is always essential because maintaining brand relationships and the customer relationship you've got is key. And it's not going to happen without the investment from brand. Practically speaking, I think that what we need to do as a business and what we did is we thought, and I'm not saying that this is the right way to go about it, but we said, okay, so we have this many millions of customers to reach, and we've got this message to get out there. What is now the best way to do that? So we didn't cut our marketing budget as much as we redirected the marketing budget. So if a media owner was unable to deliver us the audience, then there's no way we're going to spend money on that particular channel because it just doesn't make sense. Why would you do that? It's not, no business is a charity. So we redirected our funding behind TV, radio, digital, direct communication, and it's really worked for us because, I mean, just to give you an interesting stat, we obviously have a huge social media team. And our social media team is, we call them the, you know, social media command center, is connected to our kind of, you know, our call center agents. So when you complain about service on, you know, and you tag Vodacom, we get back to you and say, look, Veli, we realize that you've got this issue. There's someone who's sitting behind a desk engaging through Twitter to resolve your issue. Traffic to all our social platforms increased by about 200% as soon as COVID hit. And it hasn't gone back down to the level that it was pre-COVID. So what's happened is that customers have moved to engaging with us in digital platforms, and that's never going to change. Well, it's highly unlikely that it's going to go back to what it was. So what that means for us is that we need to redirect investment and resources to make sure that we can manage the capacity and the volume of work that comes through that particular channel. So I
Yeah.
just think it's a practical conversation you need to have around how you're reaching the audiences that you need to reach to maintain and be able to fulfill your business ambition.
Wow. Wow. That's interesting. Now, one of the things that you're in charge of is also sponsorship, right?
Yes.
Now, you guys
Yeah.
have got huge sponsorship, both in sport and the Vodacom Durban July. And the logic for sponsorship is that whatever you sponsor attracts the crowds. Now that the crowds can't go to Durban July and go to Loftus to watch the rugby and so on, I mean, you've probably got more proposals sitting on your table for asking for sponsorship. What is the future of sponsorship to you in terms of the brand relation between specifically Vodacom and the entities that you've sponsored before?
Yeah, so we've obviously got a long-standing relationship with our sponsorship partners, and what they give us is they give us emotional equity because they are loved brands by our customers, and they also give us an opportunity to commercialize the products and services that we've got through the bases that those sponsorship properties give us. So Kaizer Chiefs, for example, has got a Chiefs starter pack, which is like kind of a mobile offering. Now, that all that happens in terms of that relationship is that it's maybe potentially configured differently, but the fundamentals are still the fundamentals. We need them to give us access to the fan base that they've got, and they need us to be able to help them in communicating and engaging and keeping their brands going and experimenting with those particular fan bases. And that relationship doesn't change. So what we did with all our sponsorship partners, we sat down and we said, okay, there are certain aspects of our relationship that are no longer valid and that have changed as a result of COVID. How can we redirect some of the investment and the effort in those particular things? But we have not walked away from any sponsorship.
Beautiful.
And we don't intend to. The relationship is still there. So it's just about reconfiguring the relationship.
Beautiful. You know, AB, there's about 2 minutes left. I must say, whoever you told at Vodacom to keep the network up, I can assure you, the network has never been this clear with any of my Instagram lives.
Thanks, man. That's an ad right there.
So whoever you told, or maybe your phone is got a special network or a higher grade executive Vodacom. because more of this. This has been brilliant. So just in parting, thank you for honoring us with your knowledge, your insights. AB, what do you want to be remembered for in this industry? And I know you still have a long way. You're a young man, so this is at no point saying goodbye. But when you look back at what your contribution to the industry, what do you want to be remembered for? And this would be the last question that I have.
Yeah, for me it's clear. I want to be remembered as someone who made purpose-led organizations a real thing. I want to be remembered as someone who inspired agencies, businesses, and the entire value chain around the importance of being a purpose-led organization and finding your purpose and finding that North Star and making it real. That's what I want to be remembered for.
No, thank you very much. The hour goes very fast. It's been a true privilege. Have a good evening. Thank you so much for everyone who's watched. Thank you, AB, for giving us your time. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
All right. Cheers.
Okay.
Thank you, AB.
Thank you so much. Thank you.